Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for the Monday Q&A. So let's knock this out. First question. How much of a role does heart rate play in calories burned? If someone has a lower work capacity / cardio respiratory fitness, will they burn more calories at rest, or while training as they will generally have a higher heart rate at rest and while exercising than someone with greater work capacity / fitness levels? The more fit you get, and I hate to have to say this, I don't want people to say, oh, I shouldn't get fit because I won't burn as many calories. As you build really good cardio capacity, you tend to burn less calories while doing your actual cardio. And it's because your body becomes more efficient at it. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get fit, because you're still, if you're really fit, you're carrying a good amount of muscle, you're in good shape, you're still going to burn more overall calories throughout the day doing cardio, because things like your resting metabolic rate are going to tend to be higher. But yeah, I mean, when you're really fit and your heart and things aren't working as much, you do burn a little less when you are doing your cardio. But it's not dramatically different. It's not going to make 500 calories a day difference or anything. So it is in your best interest to do that. But yeah, you're going to burn less. And muscle mass and things matter. So if you're lifting also, the muscle is going to help you burn a lot more when you're at rest, even if the resting heart rate is slower. And the other thing to consider there is that part of the resting heart rate difference isn't because your body isn't working harder. It's that things like your blood vessels and all of that are in better shape, and they help pump some of the blood, so the heart doesn't have to work quite as hard a lot of the times. So there's more going on than just the heart issue. But there are mechanisms that will cause you to burn less overall calories while doing your cardio once you become really efficient at it. But don't use that as an excuse to not do it because, oh, I'll burn less calories so I just won't get as fit. Don't do that. It's not a good idea. All right, next question. Your opinion on the continued declining levels of the average male's testosterone levels over the course of the last few decades. Also, would having a lower level end of testosterone make any significant difference in terms of strength, lean body mass over someone with naturally high levels of test? The differences between people's natural levels is pretty minimal in terms of strength. It's not going to make a massive difference if you're in the normal range. As far as the other question, though, because it does make some difference, there are some indications that because of things like environmental changes, declining Y chromosome, there's a lot of theories out there on this. There's a lot of stuff out there, and it's hard to really pin down good information. I've kind of tried to find information on this myself, and I wish there were better sources available for this, but it is an interesting topic. This might be something I really try to delve into later and see if I can get some good research on, because I have kind of dug a little bit into it, and I can't really find what I'm looking for. And I know Jamie Lewis over at Chaos and Pain talks about this a bit and has in the past. But yeah, there does appear to be declining testosterone levels, particularly in the last 30 to 40 years. And that may very well be impacting the amount of size and strength people gain. That may very well account for one of the reasons that you did see some of the lifters and things in the older school days carrying more muscle mass than a lot of natties today, or even guys who are enhanced a little bit, moderately enhanced, who train pretty hard. So that could be a factor. I'm not saying that it is. I'm not saying that I know that it is. I'm just saying hypothetically, yeah, that could be a factor. And when we look back centuries, there are indications that people were, particularly men, were stronger and more rugged. So there could be a declining testosterone factor there. And a lot of it has to do with social things, because actually social structure impacts testosterone. We know that it does. Psychological factors can impact your testosterone production. Combined all the environmental pollutants and changes in diet. So a lot of those things seem to be probably cumulative here. And it does seem to be the case that there is a documented loss of testosterone over the last few generations. It is on the decline in the average male. And it is something we should probably be more concerned about than we are right now. All right, next question. Jason, my man, is there one certain food you do not keep in the house because if you snap, you consume the entire thing? My weakness is pizza. A lot of people, it's sweets, and I know a lot of people have that sweet tooth. For me, it's that savory taste. I love salty, fatty foods. And pizza is my number one go-to junk food. I really struggle to not overconsume 2 extra thousand calories of pizza when I eat it. I'm that guy who I can literally go to a CC's Pizza buffet and pile up 6 or 7 or 8 plates without stopping, without even thinking about it. So for me, pizza is a weakness. Now, I have used pizza in moderation on cuts, but I always have to get those lower calorie little bitty ones, and I only have one in the house, and just kind of work it in when I've done it. Right now, it's not in there because I'm running the low carbs. So it's not really an option for me, but pizza will mess me up every time. I love pizza. It's my absolute most favorite food in the world. Even cheap junk pizzas, but I mean, I've also had like Chicago pizza up in Chicago, and amazing. Only thing I haven't tried yet is New York pizza. Sorry about that side tangent there. But yeah, pizza will mess me up every time. I really can't keep it around when I'm trying to cut. Even to store it for a carb up or a cheat day or anything like that, I just can't do it. I can't have it sitting there ready because I'll tend to binge on it. So my best strategy for me, I keep it out of the house completely. All right, next question. Have you felt any positive effects going back to eating meat? I knew this one would come up more. Yeah, the truth is, guys, I struggle to stay leaner when I'm not eating meat. It's something I've noticed because they tend to be higher carb diets, and I know a lot of vegetarians and vegans want to argue with this, but I'm just talking about my personal experience as someone who has been vegetarian a couple times in the past, who was vegan for a little while. I don't lose weight easily on that type of diet because I don't have the satiety of the meat and the tissue proteins that for me are amazing for reducing appetite. And people say, well, just eat all broccoli. Well, then you feel like you're not eating anything you enjoy if you're eating 6 pounds of broccoli every day. And then you're going to have GI distress from that much insoluble fiber, and it's actually going to be harmful to you. So that's not a viable option. It just doesn't work for me. And the same with the fruit thing is people say, well, you can't eat. Guys, I've eaten like 30 bananas in one sitting on camera before, quite some time back, in one meal, and then went and ate other food later. So it's just not a viable option for me to not eat meat when I'm cutting. And you guys see the difference now that I've changed all those factors in my life. I'm down 40 pounds and still cutting with no breaks in my diet. I haven't even had what I would call a cheat of any type, even a cheat meal, in 4 weeks, and I'm doing okay. I'm not bothered by that at all. I'm doing fine because I'm pretty satiated by what I'm consuming. So the fat loss and better control of my appetite has been one of the biggest perks of adding meat back into my diet. And again, I'm stripping away body fat still pretty quickly. All right, next question. When under a lot of stress for a long duration of time, can you store body fat even in a caloric deficit? Yeah, this comes back to the cortisol debate. All right, this gets tricky because people want to say, oh, cortisol makes you store fat. Cortisol doesn't make you store fat directly. Cortisol actually causes the release of fatty acids from your adipose tissue, and it actually causes the release of glucose from muscle tissue, from amino acids. It can cause you to lose muscle. Now, can cortisol negatively affect your total metabolic rate over time? Yes, it can, because one, you can lose muscle from excessive elevated cortisol, which is caused by a very stressful period of time in your life, can exacerbate that and elevate cortisol. And high chronically elevated cortisol levels can affect insulin response. They can contribute to insulin resistance. So that combination can end up really messing with your metabolic rate over time, and that might cause some fat gain. But if you are in a caloric deficit, irrespective of what hormones are fluctuating around in your body, you're not going to gain net body fat over the course of a week if you are in a net caloric deficit. It's just not going to happen, even in those environments. Now, you might not lose any because of it. You might end up losing muscle tissue and other stores of energy as preference over your body fat due to things like the elevated cortisol and the insulin resistance. But you're not going to gain body fat. That's complete nonsense that you're going to be in a calorie deficit and gain body fat. It doesn't work that way. All right, next question. Tips for people returning to lifting after a long absence of novices when it comes to DOMs. Anything to help counter it initially, or just continue to lift till your body adjusts. Friend has had DOMs so bad, it's made me train solo a lot lately. He is a returning lifter, used to lift a lot when in college. I went through this because you guys know I had to take a month off from training pretty much just due to my move. I had sold all my weights. In order to sell them and make sure I got money for them back in the UK, I had to sell them with a bit of lead time, and I still didn't get everything I wanted for them. And then it took me a couple of weeks once I got back to Texas to actually get into a gym and everything again. So I went basically 4 weeks with no weight training. And the DOMs were bad. And all you can do really to deal with DOMs when they return like that is don't go too hard and heavy initially. Don't do silly stuff like slow eccentrics. Don't do some ultra high reps. Don't do anything that's going to make you more sore, and get in and train more frequently. The best thing you can do for DOMs is to increase your frequency. If you're getting DOMs from squats, you might want to squat 5 times that week. It's that repeat stimulation will actually reduce the DOMs faster. The worst thing you can do would be to come in and do too much volume and then wait too long to train those muscles again. That's going to make the DOMs worse and draw it out longer with more days and more weeks. So you need the opposite approach. Keep the volume in check, but keep the frequency really, really high, and that will generally deal with the situation. All right, next question. I am an intermediate lifter in my 30s. I plan to start training towards running a half marathon by the end of the year. I do not have a background in running. Is there a weight training program you would recommend to go along with high volume cardio training? Glad you asked that, because you guys know, some of you may not know, because I've interviewed him. I have a good friend, Alex Viada. He is an amazing coach for hybrid athletes. If you Google his website, it's called Complete Human Performance. Go check that out. Alex actually has programs and things out for hybrid athletes, people who want to strength train, power lift, or do serious hypertrophy work while still being endurance athletes. And Alex himself competes in super marathons, triathlons, and is an elite level power lifter, both raw and equipped. So he knows how to balance some stuff himself, and he's actually working on his PhD in biomechanics, in addition to being a coach and an athlete like that. So go check his stuff out. He has a lot of fantastic material on how to balance running with doing very, very serious power training. And he's very good at it himself, and he's good at the programming. So check it out. And I think he just put out a new book on programs. You can probably find it on his site there if you want to check that out also. All right, next question. And this one comes from the Golden One, our Swedish friend here in the YouTube community. And I'm going to cover it because I have a tactical channel also. This will be the only tactical question I do this week. Why is AK-47 so popular around the world? The good old Kalashnikov rifles. A lot of reasons. Obviously, high on the list is the fact that the Soviets and the Chinese overproduce these weapons. They have for decades and decades. Well, the Russians now, they overproduce these and they flood the market with them. They're relatively inexpensive to make. So there's tons of them out there. They're readily available. The other reason they're so popular, these weapons run really loose tolerances and they have very few moving parts. It's a brilliantly engineered design for field use. But because their tolerances are loose and the way they're designed, they're not very accurate. You try hitting something at 200 yards or 300 yards with an AK-47, best of luck to you. Whereas you take the American 5.56 rifles, and if you have any good skill, busting a person at 300 yards isn't that difficult. Pretty easy to do. The AK-47, best of luck there. They're not very accurate. They're generally only good rifles inside of 100 to 150 yards tops, with some exceptions. But because of those loose tolerances, it's a weapon that can fire thousands and thousands of rounds without ever being cleaned, without maintenance. You can get mud in it, sand in it, whatever, and it will just keep cycling rounds. And they don't require you to know how to use the weapon. They require minimal training. People don't have to be trained to maintain them. They can go thousands and thousands of rounds without wearing out. So it's that those loose tolerances, very few moving parts, mass production, that basically make them kind of the idiot-proof weapon for morons all around the world. So you can just give them to somebody, give them 5 minutes of training, and they're fairly proficient with it at that point. And they can just spray lead with them everywhere. So it's that combination of reasons as to why they are so insanely popular around the world. And yeah, truth be told, the AK-47 is the most popular rifle in the world. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.